Gathered here today for an awesome event, right? But I don't want to take any from it. I just want to welcome the FAA in for this and thank you for including flight safety in this awesome celebration, right? So we're very glad to be the hosts today for one Richard Todd. So you're going to hear some reasons, some things about Richard today. So come on, guys. Without any further ado, I'll yield the floor to our FAA gentleman.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Harden with the FAA, the Safety Program Manager for the Columbus FSDO. Why are we here today? Look at this top line. Welcome to Richard Todd's Master Pilot Award presentation. Woo! Isn't that great? As the Safety Program Manager, this is one of my fun jobs I get to do, is actually come out and recognize individuals who have made significant contributions to the aviation community. So that's why we're here today. Assisting me with this is Maureen Schumacher. She's also an FAA employee. She works with flight safety as a fleet manager. Okay. So she wanted to help out here, and we've worked with Richard and Jerry here over the last couple months. We've a lot of phone calls, a lot of coordination.
No, you've worked with
but
me.
So with that, we welcome each one of you. And it's a great day. To attain 50 years for this award, it goes without being said. So that in itself is worth the award. And we're going to step through some things here. Won't make it last more than 3 hours. So anyway, thanks for coming. Let me just say that. As we get started, when you look up here at the screen, I'm actually going to cut the light here for 1 second. I always like to read this because I don't like to paraphrase this, because this is what the award is. The Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award is the most prestigious award that the FAA issues to pilots certified under Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 61. This award is named after the Wright brothers, the first U.S. pilots, to recognize individuals who have exhibited professionalism, skill, and aviation expertise for at least 50 years while piloting the aircraft as master pilots. And that's the award. That's why we're here. So, how did we get here today? Well, after several months of coordinating with Jerry, Maureen, and myself, Maureen acted as the sponsor for Richard, and I received his application package. And once I received that package, I requested his airman's file from Oklahoma City, and we call it a blue ribbon package. And guess what? In 2 weeks, there's a package shows up with a blue ribbon on it. And this is any record that Richard had done as far as a certification with the FAA from the beginning to the end right here. So this will be his to take with him. You'll have your own blue ribbon package. So, super. All right, so that's yours to keep. Okay, after I request the records package, I do a compliance enforcement and go back and see if there's any kind of issues as far as violations or revocations. And it's good to say there were none. So that's why we're here today. In addition to that, part of the package is to obtain 3 letters of recommendation for the award. And that's usually peers of the applicant, which is Richard. And we've actually got those 3 letters here, and I've asked Maureen if she would share those 3 letters with you today.
And I certainly will. And yes, it is a great day. I am very happy to be here with you, your wife, your daughter, your son, nephew, son, brother-in-law,
Yes.
and everyone here. Thank you, Mark. So the 3 letters, I'm sure there would have been a lot more had we asked for them. But here's the 3 letters we used, and one is mine. I'll read that last. So this one comes from Fabio Miguez. Where are you, Fabio? There you are, Fabio. He sent this attention to me, and then I forwarded it to Mark. Fabio wrote, I have known Richard Todd for 9 years and highly recommend him for the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. I have known him to always operate aircraft in a safe and professional manner, be of good moral character, and an outstanding individual who is respected in the aviation community. as well as a person who is eager to share the lessons he's learned in aviation, so as to make our industry safer and more efficient. My knowledge and association with the nominee is due to the fact that we work closely together at Flight Safety Columbus Learning Center. Respectfully submitted by Fabio. Thank you, Fabio. Very well said.
Yep.
The next one is from Mr. Tim DeCourcy. I don't see him out there.
He's not here.
He's not here today. He's, pardon me?
He's hiding behind.
He's hiding. He's here. He's out there. Tim
He's
so.
in the north building, right?
Oh, okay. Tim graciously writes, "It is my pleasure to nominate Richard Todd for the prestigious Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. I have had the honor of working with Richard at Flight Safety International for the past 13 years. During this time, Richard has been an instructor, check airman, examiner, courseware developer, and mentor to many aviators. He is consistently pleasant and takes on all assignments with enthusiasm and dedication. As a professional pilot educator, Richard consistently holds himself and his students to the highest standards. I am extremely happy to endorse him as a candidate to be bestowed with the honor of the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. Respectfully, by Tim DeCourcy." And last but not least, mine, which I could have written a book about you, okay? I could have written a book, because we normally sit down and we talk about things and we challenge and we raise the level of performance for ourselves. I've had so many experiences with Mr. Todd, Richard. One day, before I read this letter, I want to just chat a little bit. One day, Richard was sitting right seat from me. I was going through some currency flying, and lo and behold, whoever was running the panel asked him to play sick. He passed out on me. So I'm sitting there all,
It wasn't.
you know what, in elbows. I don't know who it was. I'm gonna have to get, I can't remember. But I believe I was single engine. I don't know what they threw at me, but then he wakes up at the very end. "Where are we at? What would you like me to do?" I said, "Forget about it. You don't have to do anything right. Just shut up and sit there." We have had so many memorable times and so many observations over the years. I've known you probably for over 10 years at this point. And I consider you a friend.
Oh,
Not just a
absolutely.
colleague in aviation, but a friend, and I'm very proud to know you. So I will read my letter. This was to Inspector Mark Harden. "It is my pleasure to recommend Richard M. Todd to the FAA for the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. I have known Richard professionally as a training center evaluator and instructor, as well as a courseware developer for Flight Safety International for the past 10 years, and have found him to be one of the best in his field. He goes above and beyond to ensure the highest quality of training for his applicants, as well as the highest standards when it comes to the certification of pilots. Also, I have known Richard personally, and his ethics continue beyond the classroom, always keeping abreast of the latest from the FAA and industry. Richard is well deserving of this award, and I am happy to both sponsor him and send this letter of recommendation as an endorsement for him as a candidate. His dedication brings honor to the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award." And it is a pleasure to also talk about our horses and everything else in our lives, but well done, well deserved.
This is an opportunity right now that anybody else would like to say something, don't feel obligated to, but if you'd like to share something, this is the time to
don't
do it.
mind.
No, absolutely.
Listen, I'm gonna stand up. My name's Jerry Todd. I'm Richard's nephew. I probably know him more than I've been thinking this through, than anybody else in this room. For 58 years of my life, I've had an uncle probably, 56 years of my life. But when I was 4 years old, I wanted to be a pilot, and I'm going to tell you just a couple stories. I hope you don't mind, okay? I'm one of the chief pilots at JetBlue, and I owe it all to that man right there. 7 years old, waiting to pick up my uncle, flying a Tweety Bird into Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, and when he stepped off the airplane towards us, I know he only reached 6 feet tall, but he was 10 feet tall to me in his jumpsuit and his blue cap, and I've never forgotten the image. I've listened to his stories intently for 50 plus years, and I've learned more than I can ever hope to have learned from that man. Couple fun stories, I hope you don't mind. He got me in a DC-8 back before I think I was a private pilot, instrument pilot, whatever it was. But I got in a DC-8 simulator as the captain was sitting there saying, "Hey, gear up." I go, "Gear up." You have flaps down. He said, and he's over, he says, "If you're gonna do something, do it loudly." So from that point on, speak up whenever you're doing anything. Flaps up, gear up, etc., etc. He got me my first job as a jet pilot at Emory. Our chief pilot at the time was Steve Lance. And some of you may or may not know that name, I don't know. But he said, "Nephew, Steve's in town, Los Angeles, get a hold of him real quick." I tried to get a hold of him for a day and a half. I was panicking, right? He's not returning the calls, right? Sure enough, Steve calls back. He says, "Oh, yeah, Jerry, I've gotten so busy. Listen, can you just be in class a week from Monday?" That was my interview for Emory because of him.
That's cool.
I was the ace of the base. I was in the simulators on the DC, and I was doing awesome with Nick Stevens, who we shall talk about later. Nick Stevens, I think he's with NetJets, actually. Anyway.
Yeah, he's a 350 captain.
Yeah, well, okay. No, anyway, but I was doing great. And then all of a sudden I hit the wall. And I'm sure we all have at times where I couldn't think and fly or do it either one of them at the same time. And Steve Lance literally went to my uncle and said, "I'm not sure your nephew's going to make it." Okay. And that night I came back to the hotel and my uncle was sitting in the lobby. He came up to the hotel room with me and we had a talk. And I had one more sim ride and then the check ride. And I had to do well in that sim ride. He broke it down into, he said every situation that we have as pilots is pretty simple. What's wrong with your airplane? How do you fix it or minimize it? Where are you at? Where do you need to go? And how do you get there safely? And those 5 things have stuck with me for all these years. He broke it down simply. The next ride was wonderful, and the check ride, whether it was good for my aviation career or not, I was successful. So, when we got to Emory, we went through a 4-day navigation class put on by Richard Todd, designed by Richard Todd. And people griped and complained, 4 days to learn where to fly an airplane? And that was back before you younger people, and there's a few of you in here, okay? Back before we had everything on the moving map and the green line, just follow where it goes in the computer and the whole 9 yards. Back when Loran's went to the Land's End and then they went 2 separate directions, you had to decide which way to follow. Anyway, he kept me safe flying at Polar and at Emory, all over the world because of that navigation class. I was cutting up in a little bit because, teacher's my nephew, or my uncle, right? Yeah, on the first break, I was summarily told that's not appropriate. We got to fly together on one occasion. It was 4 legs, 2 legs out through Flint, and I forget what the final destination was, and then back to Dayton, Ohio the next night. We landed in Flint, Michigan. He asked me for something with ground control, wanted me to clarify something with ground control. Me as young whippersnapper first officer said, "I think we'll be okay." And then at the end of that flight, I got some great guidance from my uncle. Said, "Listen, when a captain asks you to do something and it's not unsafe, just do it." And he's correct. A lot of people at Emory sit there and say, "Well, why don't you get a check ride with your uncle? That'll be pretty easy." Are you kidding me? I never had to because of the relationship. I never, oh my stars, that would be, yeah, he'd make darn sure that everybody at Emory knew that was not an easy check ride, trust me. So, but as a chief for the last 8 years, I've come to him on many occasions for advice and guidance. He's never, ever failed me. He's been my mentor for all of my aviation career, my uncle for longer than that. I dearly love the man and am so grateful that he is not only deserving of this, but I'm not so sure that this award isn't designed by him for him. What I mean to say is that this award encapsulizes exactly what he stands for. he truly is a master pilot, and I'm so grateful to have him as an uncle and to have him as my mentor. Thanks.
Very good. Very good. Anybody else? Your chance?
I was just gonna say, we're the first crew to train with him tomorrow, so I expect him to have some big shoes to fill.
Very good, I like that.
Just remember this, 2 words, energy management.
Trim, trim, trim.
That's a sweet one.
All right. Last call, anybody else? Okay. Thanks for the input. Would you like to say
Well,
something?
Yeah, there's something very important to say here. A couple of things. Number one, I want to recognize Gene Schumacher, who puts me to shame because he has not 1 but 2 Master Awards for both being a pilot and a mechanic.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
he And then another thing that I had no information about, Mark Deming, who works in the North Building, he received his Master Pilot Award along with his father on the same day.
Wow.
And he deserves a big round. I'm going to be briefer than
Oh, you're
my
fine.
nephew. I'm the reluctant pilot. I had no plans in my lifetime to ever become a pilot. But Uncle Sugar said, would you like an M16 or maybe we can provide you with a cockpit? And I said, I think I'll take the cockpit. So I did 5 years in the Air Force, and then we parted company, and I went back to school. And I probably was suffering from PTSD because I'd just come back from 15 months in Southeast Asia. But school didn't work out real well, so I was driving a truck. And then I got on the list to become a deputy sheriff in El Dorado County in California. And I figured I was never going to see another airplane. And I got a call on a Sunday night from a friend of mine saying, I got a job flying. And I hung the phone up. I figured he was just joking. I called him back. He said, I knew you'd call back. Call this number. So I called the next day and I got a hold of the chief pilot. And he said, this is my interview to put me into commercial aviation. You fly to Hercules? He was from Czechoslovakia. I said, yeah. He said, you fly in the last year? Yeah. You have ground school in the last year? Yeah. You have class 2 medical? Yeah. You have commercial and instrument? Yeah. Can you be here an hour and a half? It was supposed to last 6 months. It was with Saturn Airlines flying a C-130, the Herc, and it lasted 14 years. They trained me to be a DC-8 pilot. Flew a DC-8s. That job went away. I went through 5 jobs after that until I got on with Emory for 12 years, and that went away, and then I went over and took a tour of NetJets, had an interview on 9/11, and got a call the next day to come to work for NetJets. Worked for them for 3.5 years, and was tired of being away from my beautiful wife. Came to work here, and it's been a beautiful 13 years here. Wonderful place to work. But I didn't plan for any of this. But every time in the past, when I would say, geez, I wish I'd have been able to do more with the music career, my wife would tell me, she said, Richard, you're doing exactly what you were meant to do. And I've come to accept that. What I do with these guys in the sim is what I have been meant to do all my life. And I thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you for
Very
being
nice.
here.
Well, when I, as part of the application process, I asked the applicant to provide me with a flying history, and some people will provide me with 2 or 3 lines of what their history is. Richard actually gave me 2 pages of his history.
Small
So-
type, I see.
Small type.
Single
So
phrase.
I thought about paring this down and trying to pick and choose, but I thought it's probably just best if I read it to you. I'll leave out some of the things that were the non-aviation stuff, but let me just read through his history for you. Okay, June 6, 67, approximately date soloed in a T-41.
Convair, Cessna 172 with 2 seats and a performance prop.
Okay. May 27th, 68, graduated pilot training, received U.S. Air Wings, received my commercial instrument license based upon completion of my pilot training. 68, reported for duty at Mather Air Force Base, Sacramento, in the T-29.
Convair 440.
That's great. I want you to keep on giving it to. That's good.
He'll know all the rest.
Okay. Received the Air Force Commendation Medal for my actions when my co-pilot suffered a heart attack. Tell us about that.
We took off out of Mather on what was called it was an overland north route, nighttime navigation. We had 14 nav students in the back, 6 nav instructors, my co-pilot. As we were climbing out, going through about 12,000 feet, grabbed his chest, screamed, said, "Get this airplane on the ground," and passed out. And then we got him out of the seat. They got him on pressure oxygen. We had a guy that was experienced in CPR, was giving him CPR all the way down. And they had a navigator up in the front. I said, "Just read this checklist when I call for it." And then got the airplane, and believe me, the 440 is not a single pilot airplane, but we got the airplane on the ground and got him in there and got him safe, and he was in ICU for a week, and so got the Commendation Medal for it.
Good job. Fantastic. 1970, Little Rock Air Force Base, advanced C-130 training. 1970, reported to CCK Air Force Base, and you told me again that stood for?
Ching Chuang Kong.
You heard it.
Ching chong.
Ching chong chong. Okay.
Yeah, it was the joint base between the Taiwanese Air Force and the U.S. Air Force. We had 95 C-130s there that cycled in and out of Southeast Asia, so we didn't count against the manpower numbers for Southeast Asia, but that's where we spent all our time, 18 days a month. 18 days in, 10 days out, the 4-week rotation.
My flying from CCK extended from Korea throughout Southeast Asia, including South Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Burma, and the Philippines. January 72, separated from the U.S. Air Force. Began employment with Saturn Airways, Oakland, California, as an L-382 second in command. 75, received my ATP and began flying as a PIC for Saturn. 1980, received a type rating in the DC-8. Had a little bit of company things going on there, and they said I returned to the L-382 as a PIC for 4 years.
They sold off 6 airplanes. I never got my IOE done.
Right. 1984, retained on the DC-8, entered worldwide service for Trans-America Airlines, flying charter, passenger, and freight. 1988, Trans-America Airlines ceased operation. In 87, he began flying DC-8 for a new Trans-International Airlines. Okay, 1987, approved as a line proficiency international operations instructor, check airman for TIA, yes. In 88, was furloughed again, and we had a lot of stuff going on here in 88. In 89, he's hired by TPI International Airways as a DC-8 PIC, line proficiency international operations instructor and check airman. 1990, hired as DC-8 Emory Worldwide Airlines, which he mentioned earlier. Okay. He said, I was instrumental in the development, installation, and the training of the pilots in the use of the universal FMS and triple redundant micro air data systems. January 2000, voluntarily returned to line flying, DC-8, both domestic and international. 2001, Emory Worldwide Airlines ceased operations, hired by Executive Jet Aviation. Wow. 2001, received a type rating in the Cessna Citation 560XL, began flying as a second in command for Executive Jet. 2002, checked out as PIC of the 560XL, flew as both PIC and SIC until December 2004. 2004, resigned from the NJA to accept a position with Flight Safety International. That's where we are. From December 2004 until present, I have been an instructor, and after a year, a contract check airman and examiner for Flight Safety, CMH, in the 560 XL and XLS. I teach both initial and recurrent ground schools for NetJets, 135 operations and Part 91 pilots. I instruct both recurrent and initial simulator for a wide range of operations, with the bulk of my time spent with NGA pilots. I have written recurrent ground school presentations for NGA. I produce, with help of a flight safety courseware developer, a specific initial ground school for NetJets pilots coming to the XL, XLS. I am certified as a contract check airman with NGA. I have testing authority for the XL and XLS. I have mentored with many of the new instructors when they began training as instructors for the 560 XL, XLS at CMH. I provide information most months to the XL, XLS instructors to expand their knowledge and improve their capabilities. So that's 50 years right there.
Wow.
That's a lot to say. So, I mean, that's quite a career, distinguished career, and our hats off to you for that. Yeah. Before we do the award itself, we always like to recognize another person other than the person we're recognizing here, and that would be the spouse. And I think she needs a round of applause for putting up with it. I'm sure you have a lot of other stories that you can share.
The best story about Richard
Public.
is one he told last night, actually, as we were sitting around having dinner and swapping stories. And it was the one where his loadmaster almost killed him.
Really?
So repeat that story.
It was an Emory airplane, a DC-873. It was a charter flight from Miami to Buenos Aires. And we were over opposite Corrosion Corner getting loaded. We had a new loadmaster, and I told him, I said, listen, long runway's closed. We can only take off at 340,000 pounds, which means we can only have 70,000 pounds of freight. If we have more than 70,000 pounds, we're going to have to stop in Caracas and refuel, because we won't be able to make it all the way. And the loadmaster said, okay. So we get all loaded up, and the charter said, no stop, because it was going to cost them extra money. So we get in the airplane, we crank it up, and we go taxiing out, and the thing's taking a lot of power to move. We get to the end of the runway, and I pull it on like this, and we have every inch available. I push it up, we set the power. I'm looking at everybody, said, we okay? Good to go? Good to go? I said, yeah, okay. I slipped the brakes. And it starts rolling. And it's rolling. We're using runway like crazy. And my co-pilot says, V1, for all you pilots out there, you know that's the last point at which you can abort the takeoff. Now we have to fly. And we're rolling. And I'm watching the end of the runway come up, and I'm waiting for him to say rotate. And the lights go to alternating red and white, which means there's only 3,000 feet of runway left. And we're rolling, and we got to where they were turning to solid red, which meant there were only 1,000 feet left. I said, I guess we better find out if it's gonna fly. And I pulled it back, and trying to keep from dragging the tail on a 73. And it just comes off just right at the threshold. We get off the ground, positive rate, gear up. Baker School of Aviation's right off the end of the runway. We just clear it. Tower says, hey Emory, everything all right? I said, well, I got to clean my pants. And we climbed out, and if you've flown a 73, you know that thing at max gross will go straight to 33,000 feet. We ran out at 29. I went into the books and looked at it. We backed it in, and we took off at 375,000 pounds. 35,000 pounds overweight. I went back and grabbed the loadmaster, who was asleep in a sleeping bag on the front pallet, pulled him out, slammed him up against the thing, and I said, you tried to kill us. I told you to weigh everything. He said, well, I weighed the top side.
Oh my gosh.
There are four pits in the belly of the airplane. He didn't weigh anything.
Oh, wow.
So we went all the way to Buenos Aires nonstop, flight level 290. Testament, a testament to the airplane. DC-8 was a marvelous.
Yeah, those are good old.
Takes a pilot.
Yeah.
And you're here today to talk about it. That's a good day.
Yeah.
That's why he
It's a
makes the
good-
NetJet crews get into the book so well.
Leave 185 pounds in Buenos Aires.
I've thought about it.
As a recipient of this award, both Richard and Jerry received the stick pins for their lapels. Both for, you can see they've actually had them on here now as a recipient for both you and your wife, so that's a good thing. And his name will also be listed in the DC on the, what's called the Roll of Honor. For anybody that's received this award, it's there. And I'll talk to you later about that. We talked about where it
Yeah.
is in Washington, DC. So with that, does anybody else want to add anything before we do the award itself? No, this is your last chance. Well, remember the TV show, This Is Your Life? This is your life. All right, come on, Richard. On behalf of the Federal Aviation Administrator, we would like to present you with the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award for your 50 years of great service. Congratulations. You didn't want to say anything else, so we appreciate everything. Take a look at the plaques up here if you get a chance. Good job, well done. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Oh, did we make sure we said that Diana, your daughter?
Introduce
Your brother-in-law, Harry,
This is my daughter Diana, and this is my brother-in-law Harry.
and
This is son Ryan.
son Ryan?
Ryan, I
He's
didn't mean
smart.
Ryan, okay.
He's smart enough to know not to get into aviation.
He does very well for himself. We were talking with him.
Thanks the family for coming out.
Yeah,
That's a great day.
and Jerry.
And thanks everybody for taking a few minutes out. I know you
There's
didn't want to
cake
escape
and
what
so
you're
forth.
doing, but
Yeah, there's cake and.
there's cake and
stuff.
some goodies over here, so.
I'm getting ready to cut it. If anybody wants to take a picture of it before it gets.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, picture of cake.
Sorry, very much.
That's okay. Yeah, we'll do some.
So the show must be over? Okay. Show's over. Adios.